The Michigan Wolverines have overtaken Georgia for the best odds to win the national championship this season. Georgia's had the best odds since way back when they beat TCU 65-7. Hasn't changed that Georgia has the best odds. And now it has changed after the bye week, after Vanderbilt, even after the Kentucky game. The last month, really, it's been a slow burn to didn't mean to knock that. It's been a slow burn to who has the best odds to win the college football playoff national championship. It's a mouthful, I know. And now Michigan is the slight favorite over Georgia. Michigan's at 1, Georgia's at 2, Ohio State's at 3, Florida State at 4, Oklahoma at 5, Washington at 6, Bama at 7, Texas at 8, Oregon at 9, and 10, LSU. So 3 SEC schools making that top 10. Penn State, 11. So they're on the outside looking in at that. But yeah, Georgia doesn't have the odds now. Does that make sense? A little bit. I think it makes a little bit of sense. Does it make sense that Michigan has the best odds? Well, this is based off of how they've played this season. And how have they played this season? Whipping up on a bunch of bad teams. They will not play a good football team until November 11th at Penn State. I think that Michigan will win that football game. Seen enough from Penn State. I thought that Penn State was going to be better than they are, and they're not. Does not mean Penn State's not a top 10 team. I thought Penn State had a chance to possibly sneak into the college football playoff, but clearly Michigan is the one over there. There's a lot of scandals going on up there in Ann Arbor, a lot of sign stuff, a lot of all that. I don't know if that's going to affect this season at all. We'll see how that plays out. I'm going to talk as if that's not going on, even though it's very much going on. And if you're Michigan, though, you've got to get through Penn State and Ohio State, and then whoever plays you in the Big Ten championship, if you get there, is probably not going to be that good. So yeah, it does make sense that Michigan has the best odds, because guess what Georgia's got to go through? Florida, who is better than, is Florida better than everyone Michigan's played so far? I'd venture to say yes. Who's the best team Michigan's played so far? East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State. These are not good football teams. Georgia has beaten a ranked team. Michigan has not played a ranked team. And they're about to play Florida, who's number 26. Outside looking in. Don't forget about that. Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. The next month for Georgia will be way harder than anything Michigan's gone through this season. And that's fine, because Michigan is going to play a couple of difficult games, being Penn State and Ohio State. So yes, it makes sense to me that they would have better odds to win the national championship. They're obviously viewed now as the best team in college football according to Vegas, or maybe that's the wrong way to put it. They're just viewed as the team that is most likely to win it all. I would venture to say Ohio State should have the best odds, if not better. Who does Ohio State have the rest of the way? That I just don't think that they have anyone the rest of the way that's challenging, other than Michigan. Ohio State only has to get through Michigan now as far as really, really challenging games on paper. And Michigan has to get through Penn State and Ohio State. And guess what, Michigan? You're going to Happy Valley. It's going to be at noon. That time's already been announced. It's going to be that Fox noon kick on November 11th. I'd venture to guess that Ole Miss and Georgia will play at 3:30 that day, but we'll see. That's not confirmed yet. That's just my guess at the moment. The fact that Georgia's odds are super close to Michigan, and I'll just give you the numbers. I'm on Vegas Insider right now. 225, 250 on FanDuel. It looks like they're even on FanDuel, but on a lot of the websites, Michigan now has better odds. On Bet365, they've got better odds. On DraftKings, they don't have better odds, and I think that has to do with the sign stuff, because the odds don't make sense on DraftKings from what I'm looking at right now. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of these 7 sites I'm looking at, Michigan's favored in 5 of them, and I think that tells you a lot about Georgia. You want to hear the other side of the coin? That tells you how they feel about Georgia, because Georgia's got to Georgia's already had to play through worse. Not saying that the schedule's been really difficult for the Dogs at this point, but they've had to get through worse. And they did get through it. And they're undefeated, and they're still the number one team in college football. Michigan has not had to do that. Now, as bad as these teams have been, they're taking care of business. Because guess what? Not even close. Michigan's got the best scoring defense in college football. Remember 2 years ago when Georgia was averaging only allowing 6-7 points a game midway through the year, most of the way through the year in 2021, and how generational that defense was? Well, guess what? Michigan, their scoring defense right now is averaging 5.88 points per game. They're only allowing 5.88 points per game. Elite. Bad schedule, but that's elite performance. No one scored over 10 points on them. Minnesota had 10. And look, J.J. McCarthy's now the Heisman favorite. Game recognizes game. I got you, J.J. You're playing well. You're the Heisman favorite. I get it. I still think Michael Penix Jr. is a baller. And at this point, his numbers are just crazy. And Georgia's got a lot further to go as far as what they've got in front of them. That gauntlet that they've got over the next month, then Tech, and then probably Alabama or LSU, that is way harder than whatever Michigan's about to have to do. I'm sorry. It is way hard. I'm not sorry, but that is way more difficult. Yet Georgia's only slightly worse in the odds, and they were higher not too long ago. So that tells you everything you need to know about how they feel about how good these programs are, in my opinion. That is the in between the lines that I don't think people are going to talk about. The fact that Georgia's odds are just as good, right, and better depending on the website you ask, and yet they've got a way more difficult because if you're Michigan, you've got 2 really challenging games left, and Georgia's probably got 5, and they still got the same odds. Ryan Curley from Dog Post, by the way. I have failed to introduce myself in this video. I'm going to link EcoPoly down below. Look, guys, people are starting to catch on that EcoPoly's got great outdoor furniture, so make sure you're checking it out. I can attest to that. The stuff is nice. I was looking at some of it today, actually. Sat in a couple things. In the big throne-like chair, actually, I got to sit in. And definitely check out the website down below. I've got a code for you, 15% off and free shipping if you choose to order. That's all I got to say about that. Be a 5-star Georgia fan and be a 5-star outdoor furniture owner with your EcoPoly. So let's talk about the rest of these odds. Other than Michigan and Georgia. So after that, there's a drop-off to Ohio State and Florida State kind of in their tier. So it's, according to odds, Tier 1, Michigan, Georgia. Tier 2, Ohio State, Florida State. Tier 3, Oklahoma, Washington, Alabama, Texas. Tier 4, Oregon, LSU, Penn State. So that's kind of the way it's being broken down right now. Excuse me, I just burped on camera. I apologize. I almost ended the video on that, but I'm not going to. But that's how they're tiering it up. So in Vegas's eyes and the experts' eyes, and look, the odds makers, they do know a little bit about what they're talking about. They view Georgia and Michigan in its own tier. Now, the College Football Playoff Committee, oh boy, last year the initial rankings were terrible. Expect a possibly similar situation next week. No matter what happens, unless Georgia really blows out Florida, which I'm not predicting. I am predicting a sound win, but I'm not predicting a blowout. Unless Georgia blows out Florida, I think the committee will put one of those Big Ten schools at 1 and possibly 2. And last year, they put Georgia at 3 behind Tennessee and Ohio State, right? They might do the same thing again, just behind Michigan and Ohio State. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. And obviously, you're not going to be mad about it because you know how much it doesn't really matter in the initial ranking as long as you win your football games. So, Michigan overtaking Georgia, number 1 odds. Read between the lines. Think about it. Let me know what you think down below. EcoPoly links are down below. Thanks for sticking with me.